are we being killed by cattle?
Well, this is it, the relentless push to convince us that all livestock is not just deadly, but also destructive to the environment. So we start with an announcement that DEFRA have just reported on African swine fever in pigs and wild boars in Europe. Of course, you won't be surprised to know this amounts to one case of a wild boar in Western Germany for the first time. Nonetheless, that has made them concentrate on development of a vaccine for African swine flu. Of course, this is only possible because of the use of the PCR test. So this is in effect the COVID model being put onto livestock. And then we look at the Pirbright Institute, which we've spoken about a number of times before, and they run a course, lab diagnosis of African swine fever, conveniently enough, in which you will be able to learn how to isolate ASF virus and apply diagnostic methods. So it's little coincidence to find that Pirbright Institute are also joining the European Swine Fever Project, which is going to be developing new technologies for African swine fever vaccines. Here we see at the European Commission. On top of that, we've got avian influenza recorded in Australia. Again, absolute bare minimum of evidence, but still it's enough to put out a press release about it. And this, again, is meant to make people swallow the idea of the spread of something, not just from one creature to another, but also from one species to another, and then, of course, on to humans. So they talk about H5 and H5N1 having spread among seabirds, and of course, in the Falklands, then we go back to the elephant seals earlier in the year. So they're now prepared for detections in Australia, despite the absolute minimal evidence of 5 cases, again, by PCR test. Further, we've got on the environmental side of it, Denmark yesterday has just put through a carbon tax on agriculture. And again, seems to be a push to eliminate livestock from people's lives. This came from an earlier policy paper, February 2023, the adaptation of Danish farm sector to a tax on greenhouse gas emissions. And in effect, it does leave people begging the question that McGill University did ask, which is, why isn't the carbon dioxide from breathing a concern for global warming? Meaning, if animals are to be attacked for effectively breathing, why are humans not subject to the same treatment? But the answer seems to be that carbon dioxide we inhale does not contribute to global warming, for the simple reason that we also take up an equivalent amount of carbon dioxide from the air, albeit indirectly. No one really seems to be able to explain why animals aren't regarded in the same light. But the point here to consider really is that despite the absolute absence of any sort of coherent science, we are continually being pushed to consider that we should eliminate meat from our diets, that livestock are no good for the environment, and that we are likely to catch disease off them, or that they will spread disease among each other. So this is, of course, something that we have been looking at for a while and will keep very much keep an eye on, but particularly with regard to the push or the suggestion that these things can jump, not just geographically, but from species to species, despite absolute dearth of evidence.
Yes, but I would argue, Charles, they are absolutely encouraging us to believe that humans are contributing to global warming through breathing out, which is why they want to stop us breathing at all. And we'll come on to the war policy a bit more in a second. But